My name is Clara Tauson, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
I am Francisca George, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Susan Leemans, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom. Yeah.
My name is Zainab Sammaz, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hey guys, my name is Sasha Vickery, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hi, my name is Lloyd Harris, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Jan Faria, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Yes.
Take one. Well done.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Paulini, and I'm a friend of the show.
Wow, Jasmine, you got it in one time.
Ready? Play.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to what is the first last ball drops, if that makes sense, first last. The first last ball drops of the Australian Open. It probably feels as though Christmas was only a few days ago because technically it was. But we are already into the first Grand Slam of the year, and we already have had the first load of matches of the year. Well, we could say load of matches. Today has been quite a rain-affected day. Probably not too bad for European audiences. I'm sure it was more of a worse effect, certainly for those who are watching during the day in Australia or in the American continent, just because that's when they can mainly watch the matches. But we have had had a range of matches completed. You've got me, James, and Damien to the left or right of me as I'm pointing in that direction for those that are looking at our screens as we're talking about this. So we're just going to go through some of those matches, some of those key matches that are taking place on courts like the Rod Laver Arena, like Margaret Court and whatnot. I'm going to ask Damien's opinion on how he thinks Coach's Corner is potentially going, which is the new system that the Australian Open are trialing at the moment. And then, of course, look ahead to maybe some key little matches that are going to take place tomorrow. How have you found the first day then, Damien?
Come again?
How have you found the first day of
the first day as a whole? Yeah. Obviously, the rain was a little bit of an issue, but we knew that could be the case. The forecast was rough. I think from my perspective, thank you, Jake. And that actually is true. I do look well rested, probably because I am. And also, I have a lot of energy for this one because I slept for like 6 hours today, which usually wouldn't happen. But because, it was only 3 courts, at some point I just realized, okay, there's a bit of a break coming up after this match as well. Yeah, it's the best time to actually go to sleep. And I don't think I ended up missing anything too important, maybe other than the actual Nishikori comeback, because I watched the first 2 sets, but then I went to sleep. But otherwise, I feel very happy with this day because, I still was able to get a lot of rest while still watching 95% of the tennis. Of course, hopefully the next days are going to be clearer weather-wise. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed it from that standpoint. And of course, during the night, we also did a watch along with Vanch on Virtanen Fields and kind of on Todoni Zheng at the same time. So that was quite enjoyable as well.
No, excellent. I think we'll probably will. And also, if anyone's got any questions in the chat about some of the matches that they want us to give an answer to, do put them in there and we will read them out. So just sort of linking on to, you mentioned about Kei Nishikori, and I had to check the date because it's currently 2025, but he's winning 5-set epics, and I feel like it's 2015 instead. How did he do this? Is the old dog still got a lot of new tricks in him then, Damien?
I mean, as I said, I went to bed after the first 2 sets, so I can only speak of the part of the match where Monteiro was just like crushing his serve, crushing every shot, playing like he did against Steph in Madrid last year or like Ruud in Bostad. He was on a crazy streak of over 30 consecutive service holds. Monteiro coming, of course, from the qualifying as well with that on a very solid run, perhaps some of the best hardcourt tennis we've seen from him. So honestly, like my idea for this match beforehand was probably that I was thinking, okay, so Kei is going to be like 2 sets to love up, then it's going to get tighter, but then he finally conserves some energy for the 5th, a la Diallo last year at the French Open. Because Kei, of course, has that incredible deciding set record and 5th set record, basically one of the best in history in this regard. In terms of 5th set, I think indeed the best in history. So I was thinking maybe that would be the way it goes. But when he lost the first 2 sets, I was just thinking, okay, so this is done because physically it's just impossible. The guy is just shot at this stage of his career. But, well, he was able to pull it off. First 2 sets of down comeback for him since 2019. And yeah, certainly it's a very impressive feat, just sort of coming right now. There was also that Hong Kong run, right? And already there you could see that like third sets were awful for him generally. So that's kind of wild that he was able to pull this off. Does this make it even more tough for him to win against Tommy Paul potentially in the second round? Yeah.
No, I think it does indeed. Tommy Paul is, he has a good amount of legs in him. And as you were saying, from that Hong Kong run, for third sets, he did look completely wiped. Certainly against the likes of Norrie, and also certainly the beginning stages of the Norrie match, but then also on the final itself against Alexandra Muller. Like we said, so Monteiro was a qualifier. I mean, that probably played a factor in him feeling very comfortable in the conditions. But yeah, as you say, it's that 5-set record, it's that deciding set record that Kei Nishikori is able just to continue to keep eking up, and it may just play in the mind. I mean, granted, it's a weird one because Kei hasn't necessarily been a factor on the tour. Probably actually for a while. I mean, even when I started mainly watching tennis, or certainly week in, week out, was in 2021, and before that, he kind of disappeared. But just before that, so I've not seen Kei really at these main tour events consistently for 3-4 years. So for him, so a lot of players on the tour may necessarily not have that fear going up against Kei. They may hear about this record, but they may not have grown up in around about that time of him winning those deciding sets and being that dominant in 5-set matches. But he's certainly let some of the newest sort of generation know this year now that he is primed and ready to go when it comes to going the distance if you need to take him there. What we'll probably do is just to stick in.
Also, he saved match points as well. I didn't even know.
Yes, he had to save 2 match points in the third set. On his serve, luckily, not on Materio's serve, but an advantage point and also a 40-30 point. I think that was a great graphic. I mean, that is really good going. I mean, I think he said in his interview, at least I heard a snippet on Twitter, on X, that he basically at that point near enough had given up, and he was just basically hitting through the motions, and didn't even realise that he had match points to try and defend when it needed to be. Which is quite funny to think that he was such in the zone when he was doing that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I had no idea. As I said, I went to bed after the first 2 sets. Thiago was firing. Tough to say, Jake. I mean, definitely that was one of the best serving performances I've seen from him. But from time to time, he has a very good serving performance like this on hard courts. And he always kind of surprises you with this, because then he goes and loses to Zhizhen Zhang in 55 minutes at the United Cup. And, it's like it's not even a factor. So I don't know if he maintains it over like a larger period. Yeah, maybe you can say he's improved that department, but definitely one of the best serving performances I've seen from him. The first 2 sets again, because after that I wasn't watching.
Yeah, and sort of linking and sort of as if anyone else has got any questions to do with Kei, just linking to just the sort of staying on the John Cain Arena, because that is where that match took place. The match before that was between Mira Andreeva and Maria Bouzkova and Bouzkova. I'll probably butcher that pronunciation, but we'll rock with it. So Mira Andreeva won 6-3, 6-3. Did you see any of this match? Did Mira look in control?
Barely. This was basically during the Virtanen Fields match and Todoni Zheng. So I mostly missed it. Vange was, had a screen on it, but I think only from time to time he was able to kind of give us something, as these 2 matches were obviously ones we were really focusing on, given that they were quite entertaining. I think there was a very long game in the second set that kind of decided the end of it, but overall, for sure, it's good to get through someone like Bouzkova, reasonably, comfortably, because it can be a tough match. She's just so determined. She's just so gritty. And for someone like Andreeva, who's not like a very natural attacking player, you really have to just be able to fit into that role in this particular matchup, and she was able to.
We got Jake saying that Andreeva was a joy to watch. Glad to know, Jake, that you were up at the time to be able to watch her. So you were saying about you and Vance were watching the match that took place on Margaret Court Arena first. That was Otto Virtanen beating Otto Virtanen versus Artifice. Artifice winning 3-6, 7-6, 6-4, 6-4. What were your major what were your major takeaways from that? Was it a case of Fils was playing poorly in the first set and Otto was sort of purple patching, or was it either which way, whatever way I'm trying to describe it just there?
Yeah, I wouldn't say poorly, definitely not. I think that honestly, it might sound a little weird, but it's one of the best wins of Fils' career in a way, because this is like the blueprint of the type of win he needs to be getting this year, in terms of being able to take that next step and get a big run at a slam, get a big run at an ATP 1000. So like when the opponent is taking the game to him, has a tough sort of like matchup as well, in terms of that, Virtanen can go with that flat pace at his forehand, especially cross-court with the forehand, obviously, big serve. And you kind of just have to stick around. You have to extend the points. You have to be very, of course, this is super athletic, dynamic, quick, but he's not always just like, it's not easy for him to rely on that always, especially from the backhand corner if he's forced to defend a lot. And there was this one huge game where Virtanen was serving for a 2-set-to-love lead. He won the first point of that game even, 6-3, 5-4, 15-love. There's 3 consecutive amazing returns from Fils. It's like return 1 2 punches, also one that's gonna be right on the line. Then Virtanen gives him a double fault to get the break, but still, it's like way more important what happened on the previous 3 points from Fils' perspective. And from there, it was just a very different encounter. So like he never faces a break point again. He's never really in trouble. He's extending the points to basically against Otto, a lot of the time, it's just gonna be 1 or 2 more shots you really need. Some of the like +1 inside-in winners that Otto was getting before, suddenly they're not winners. Suddenly you have to play that extra shot, and that's already enough. And yeah, from that point onwards, it was just a very controlled performance. So I think in many ways, this is exactly what he needs to be doing this time. And like this year, in order to get into that like top 10, get a big run at a slam. Because if he's just, sort of losing to the first unpleasant opponent he faces, which generally over the course of his career, I guess has been like Umber, Arnaldi, Davidovich Fokina. Of course, I guess Umber is kind of similar here to Virtanen, but much more tricky given he's a lefty. But I think in terms of just both mental game and also tactically, this was a very, very sound showing. I don't know if it's possible for him to kind of get over this hurdle already at the Australian Open, given he has Umber in the third round again, potentially looming. But certainly, I think this is something that Fils will learn a lot from. And obviously, it's good to learn from a win as well, not from a loss.
No, indeed. I mean, as you say, this is, I believe you just said this is his first win at the Australian Open. I think it was in the main draw. So it's for him to get over the line, in such a difficult type match, especially when he'd been put, probably for the first time he's experienced, being placed onto one of the big show courts as the main attraction, and not necessarily just as the second guy to a certain player outside of the French Open. So at the Grand Slam level. So it's a good victory for Fils in the end. And just happening at the same time, there was Qinwen Zheng came through quite comfortably. I say quite comfortably against Todoni, the Romanian qualifier.
Not comfortably. Not comfortably.
I'm just looking at the results because I got
5-4 love. Qinwen was 5-4 love on serve, and then she actually had to save 3 set points herself at 5-6. It actually became far from comfortable at some point. Todoni was returning so aggressively. She was kind of playing the Avanesian style, as in like when Avanesian was taking down Qinwen with all these loops and just breaking her contact point, her timing. And Todoni was also using that so smartly to give herself just opportunities to neutralize and then attack, to open up the court. She had 3 set points, but Qinwen's serve kind of came alive then, and she played a very good tiebreak as well. So she fended off that in the opening set, and then second set, obviously that kind of just like steamrolled out of control. Todoni was also, she had a medical timeout on like lower back, I think. But yeah, first set far from comfortable, even if it looked like this for like the first 80% of it. But eventually Todoni had 3 set points and indeed gave a very good account of herself, as Jake is saying in the chat.
No, that's I'm just going off what I can see on the scoreboard because unfortunately that was right on when I was asleep. But no, you were there, Damien, and you were able to tell us exactly what sort of took place in that match. But it's good for Zheng. She hasn't had any build-up tournaments, and we've seen with a couple of players today that those players that didn't play a build-up tournament really did struggle in terms of being able to get results or whatnot. So to get a win under a belt, did it seem like, because there's rumours about, or say rumours, but potential of injuries to do with Zheng, and she was saying the reason why she wasn't in any of the warm-up events, did anything seem like it was to miss? Do you know?
No, I think the reason cited for her United Cup withdrawal, which was the only event she was planning to appear at, was like recovery or something like that, which obviously could be just her not willing to like share everything that's happening for her body right now. I mean, why would she? I guess, but yeah, I mean, there's no physical concerns at this point in time.
Cool. And then moving on to the second match of the day session, which took place in the Rod Laver Arena. That was Casper Ruud getting himself embroiled in a 5-set epic with Yao Munar. Yao Munar is quite famed for getting a lot of players embroiled in 4 and 5 set epics earlier on in tournaments. How did Ruud look? Was it as physical a match as people were predicting?
Maybe not. I mean, Casper definitely did still play pretty aggressively, but the 2 sets that he lost, they were kind of like blowouts. Like when he was off, he was really off. And I just wonder if it's not going to be a similar case to what we've been seeing with Ruud the past few years, where like the first tournament is amazing, sometimes the second as well. And then the Australian Open is just, well, not quite as good, let's just say. Last year, of course, an unexpected loss to Nori, who did play one of the best matches I've seen him play. Yes, I will give you that. It was a very surprising kind of like...
As a Nori fan, I'm going to have to live off the past, I think, this year, but we'll rock with that.
Yeah, I did think it was a very surprising, like net-heavy offensive performance from Cam there. There was also the loss to Brooksby 2 years ago. So yeah, generally Ruud doesn't seem to deliver on these courts. Watching this, I am very much like thinking, okay, if Menchik gets through Basilashvili somewhat easily, I think Menchik will be the favorite over Casper. But still, of course, it's not like it will be a done deal. And it's just a bit of a shame that he's not like quite as sharp as at the United Cup, because you could easily make the case that at the United Cup, Casper was the best player in the, at least among the men. I don't think anybody else performed quite as well. So, I mean, we'll see. But it definitely wasn't a perfect performance, but it's good for him to win in the end and get that 6-1 fifth set. Is it a bit of a tricky matchup on hard? Maybe. It kind of sounds weird if you say that Jaume Munar is a tricky matchup on hard, but maybe for someone like Casper, it actually is. What would I like to see from Qinwen in order to make the next step, Jake? I think we said basically with Vange on the show last night that like her chances of winning a slam are pretty low until she can beat Świątek, Rybaki, Nagov, Sabalenka. Like that's kind of all there is to do there, right? So figure out something there. I'm not really sure what yet, because their weight of shot generally, all 4 players, is overwhelming to her and doesn't really allow her to access most of her strengths. But yeah, I mean, these matchups are gonna like be really hampering her for the time being.
No, indeed. And now linking on to what is the matches that I was able to see, at least when it came to on the big courts. Sort of starting with Sabalenka versus Stevens. Of course, Sabalenka is the defending champion of the tournament, and she really came through 6-3, 6-2. But it was a very tricky 6-3, 6-2. Very much looked as though Sloane Stevens had a game plan that was designed to make certainly test Sabalenka, and that seemed to sort of be noted. I know the unforced error counts from Sabalenka were higher than certainly what she would want, certainly at this stage, but was able to come through in the end. Did you see anything of the Sabalenka Stevens match?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like typical Stevens. I think they had this match at the French as well, which was way more competitive, but it was very similar in the sense that Arena had an early huge lead, and then suddenly it just gets more competitive because it's Sloane. Like there's no telling what she's gonna do within the next 3 games. She might just give you everything with an unforced error, or maybe she's just gonna be a wall. And being a wall is sometimes a strategy to at least push Arena. Of course, she's been very dangerous recently, mostly because she is actually like getting through these walls. Like Putintseva in Brisbane, of course, she gave her a tough challenge, and yet she's still finding a way. So I don't think I was ever like really thinking, okay, Sloane is probably gonna be like, she might take the set or something like that, even when it got close, just because Arena has been problem solving quite well recently. But yeah, I mean, it's just like a typical Stevens match to me. You can, she's going to be turned on for like 5 games, then turned off for 5. and it just keeps going like this basically. And I think John is right about the biggest error from Sabalenka was the dance. It was forced.
I thought the biggest error was the fact she couldn't work a Polaroid camera for 2 minutes as well after that, when she was trying to take a photo of somebody in the crowd. I mean, I have to say, and I'm probably going to be an outlier when I'm saying this, I'm kind of just a tad concerned with Sabalenka's level at the moment, only because the Brisbane run was okay. Yes, she won the title, which is fantastic, but she didn't really, well, barring Andreeva in the semi-final, she didn't really play anyone of any real significance that would, maybe she would meet in the fourth round, quarter-final, semi-final of the Australian Open, and it just doesn't really feel as though she's got out of third gear at any given point. All the matches that she's played have been a bit scrappy and a bit messy, and as you say, problem-solving in the way, and actually getting through them. But as we've seen or as we're kind of expecting, as Coco Gauff's in her half of the draw and an expected semi-final opponent, if she doesn't improve her level, and knowing what we've seen with Coco Gauff at the United Cup, with the match she played against Swiatek, I think she, a run to the title, as some of us a lot of people will be predicting, just given her hard court ability, may not necessarily be in the bag as much as some people may think.
I kind of agree and kind of don't. I mean, you mentioned that she wasn't facing opponents she's gonna play in like the fourth round of the quarters here. Actually, her fourth round opponent projected is Andreeva. Mm-hmm. So I think quarters as well. I don't really remember. Oh, it's Zheng, right? I mean, she owns that matchup. So I don't think these are like real issues for Sabalenka at the moment. However, yes, obviously you're right that Gauff, Rybakina, Swiatek, she hasn't played them yet, mostly because, well, she couldn't. They were at the United Cup. So it might take some adjustment, yeah, sure. But there's still so much time before that Sabalenka Gauff semi that I think we kind of just need to look at it in a couple of rounds time, basically. For now, I definitely struggled to pick a winner out of that match. If someone was asking me like who is going to win the women's singles at the Australian Open, I was just saying the winner of that semifinal. And that's kind of still where I stand. Of course, we still haven't seen Coco play. Sabalenka has just, done everything we would really expect her to. There's sometimes like not even space to bring in more fireworks when you're not facing the other elite competition. So yeah, I've got really nothing, I guess, to criticize her for thus far in 2025. And when she is facing adversity, when she is in trouble for at least a little bit, I think she's done okay. So that convinces me that she'll probably get to that semi, and then whatever happens, really. Also, Ghosty, like you can't really ask where is this coming from about Clara Tauson, right? I mean, that's like one of the brightest prospects of the last few years, I think. So, but yeah, I mean, obviously, she also won the title, and what was that title? Adelaide,
Auckland.
No, Auckland. Yeah, Auckland. Just before the Slam. Although she didn't technically win it, which I think someone on one of the streams a few days ago really made me laugh.
What was it that I think Ostapenko said? Not Ostapenko, sorry. Osaka said in her press conference, which was, "I tactically lost that match." It was how she said it in terms of when it came to her body, which bit of a burn really to place at Tauson, that she tactically decided that because of the risk to her body if she continued of losing that match, which I think was quite a funny statement to make.
And just one thing, we also skipped over this question from Jake about Andreeva's forehand, but I think Ghosty actually, said it quite well there, that it's not really like too much of a concern for the time being. Maybe if she gets to like an even higher level, then we'll see. But for now, it just seems like everything else about her game is just kind of it's making sure that this is not at the forefront of the discussion. But yeah.
No, cool. And then just to, because we've gone from Sabalenka, Zverev, quite comfortable, quite, uniform as well. 6-4, 6-4, 6-4 against Luca Poi. I mean, the only real thing I gathered from that match was that Zverev just looked pretty solid on his own service game and really just caused a lot of problems to Poulet, who just basically did as best he could to hold his own serve through the majority of that match. But it was good to see that. I mean, I know Poulet was with the recipient of the French wildcard associated to the Australian Open and the US Open, with the deal that those three tennis authorities have. But it's good to see him at the Grand Slam, at least competing with some of the best in the world.
Yeah, sorta. I mean, it easily could have been like a 6-2, 6-2, 6-2. I think Zverev went 3 out of 18 on break points. But, I mean, sure. It's a comfortable scoreline. Obviously not the best draw. Wimbledon third round last year, Pui. So he's still getting some Grand Slam runs. But, of course, at this stage of his career, if he draws Zverev, like that's just game over. I think physically there's just some things he just cannot make up for anymore. He's just not going to be overwhelming players like this anymore, and yeah, it's just what he has to live with. Of course, it's just the draw was too tough.
Yeah, it was, and it's too tough to pull. I mean, like I say, it's been around for a while now, and just say it could have been a lot worse. Sort of going on from that, and then what we will just quickly do is go to somebody who made history today. All the way out in the outside court against Bouzkova, was beaten by Habib. Now, what's Habib's first name? As I completely sound like it. Habib, who was able to, in straight sets, and two of those sets being tiebreakers, like we say, Bouzkova 7-6, 6-4, 7-6. Making history, first of all, because he's the first Lebanese player since 1977, I believe, who managed to get into the main draw of a Grand Slam. And now,
are you counting the women as well, or what?
In the men. Sorry.
No, then men it's pre-Open era. It's like 50 something, 60 maybe. Yeah, around that time.
Maybe my stat that I picked up was more to do
first
with,
in the Open era anyway on the men's side.
First in the Open evenings, and given the issues that are taking place in Lebanon at the moment, such a huge result really for one of their own to get a win at a Grand Slam and to get themselves into the second round.
I mean, obviously it's a fantastic story. He's been making history for Lebanon ever since the Olympics. He was technically the first player from Lebanon to compete in the tennis Olympics, even though Hassan was also in the same event, but he played the day after. He definitely was the first and still is the first for now to win a challenger singles title. And now also, this event, obviously, getting to the third round, first player in the Open era, in the qualifying, then getting to the main draw, and now getting the win. Pretty fortunate draw, I mean, not going to lie, but it's like, the level was still just as good as we've been seeing from him the last few weeks. He was unplayable on serve until serving for the win, which is becoming a bit of a pattern, to be honest. In the Temuco final, Ugo Carabelli broke him when he was serving for it. Patrick Gibson in the first round of the qualifying, same thing. Like, couldn't do anything on return until that game comes. But he's still winning all of these matches. All three matches that I just mentioned: Ugo Carabelli, Gibson, Bouzkova today. He's still winning these. And it's just.
I mean, not to sound like a game show from UK TV from 10 years ago, but you've got to be in it to win it.
Yeah, and he is definitely doing that. There was also a huge Lebanese community there, so I think that really helped. Like, the fans were going crazy. Hadi is definitely a huge success story for this country. He was actually born in Houston, but he did live in Lebanon for years when he was a kid. Then returned to the States. He actually represented the US as well until 2018. But still, someone who was in Lebanon for quite a long time. I think Hassan is maybe more German, raised even. But certainly both of them are like waving the flag, and they've been amazing in Davis Cup already, and now they're also doing it in the pros or on the biggest stages. So that's fantastic. He's gonna play Ugo Humbert. Whatever happens from here is a bonus. He's obviously got an amazing serve, so maybe he can get it to tie breaks again and see how it goes from there.
I mean, just to go into the future, because you've watched him a lot in the Challenger circuit, I believe. Do you see him as somebody who could potentially make it on the main tour, or at least be a stable force on the main tour?
Probably not, but if he breaks the top 100, gets 80, 90, that would be a very good result, I think, for his career already. The way he's playing right now, it's certainly possible. If he can keep it up this year, maybe even this season it will be possible. But in terms of long-term prospects, probably not. I mean, the guy is 27. I know he played college, but it's a late breakthrough. It is definitely real. Kind of reminds me of, let's say, B. Harris or Valentin Vachereau. These guys have already gone almost close to, they've already gone pretty close to the top 100. And I think they're pretty similar in the sense that they, I don't want to say like I called Vachereau caveman tennis at some point like 2 years ago, and he did change that. Like he really did improve a lot in terms of point construction. But I think a lot of them, all of them, Vachereau, Harris, Habib, they have like very basic games. They just serve big and then they hit big. But you can definitely get like 80, 90 with that. Obviously, Billy almost made the top 100 last year. Vachereau, if he didn't get injured, he would have been in the top 100. So, yeah, I think it is possible. I think he's not much worse than these guys.
No, indeed. Always like make them sound like a caveman. Hit big, see big. On that one there. And then just, as you say, as was partly mentioned in the chat to do with Clara Tauson, she inflicted the only seed defeated today. I mean, I guess granted a good chunk, 8 or so matches were cancelled today. But she beat the 29th seed Linda Noskova, who made a decent run here last year, if anyone remembers. I believe it was it to the 4th round, beating Iga Swiatek along the way.
I'd say quarter, maybe even, wasn't it? Svitolina retired with that back issue against her in the 4th round, I believe. So she would probably lose to Yastremska in the quarters.
I think it was Yastremska, yeah. So it's going to be a chunk of points that's going to fall off Noskova's ranking. But yeah, Noskova took the first set 7-5, and then Tauson saw off the rest 6-3, 6-4. Good win for Clara. Certainly a player that a lot of people have touted, or at least believed from a younger age, was going to be a big name in the women's game, but just hasn't really materialized just yet. Did you have any thoughts on Clara getting this win?
Yeah, I mean, so many injuries in her career already. I know that Jake is concerned with her movement. We did talk about it like a couple of days ago. But the ball striking quality is still elite. Like if she can get into position, she's fantastic. She had this amazing win against Anett Kontaveit a few years ago at the Australian Open. So it's not really like her first rendezvous there. Kontaveit at the time was probably like number 2 or number 3 in the world, I believe. And yeah, I think it's just a pretty Clara Tauson here.
Friend of the show.
In this intro that we did before this show, we had 2 friends of the show who won today. So Clara, of course, and Susan Leymans as well. But yeah, I think she's a fantastic prospect, and it was just a very good young battle between the 2 very talented players. Noskova, as you said, losing a lot of points, but she's good enough and kind of still inconsistent enough that I think she's going to have her good weeks somewhere, and she's probably not going to be like that amazing, in terms of week in, week out. Also, Jaime Faria was other player in that intro, of course, was supposed to play today, but his match was moved to tomorrow against Pavel Kotov.
No, it was indeed. And then just to run through some of the other things before I go on to a little segment I'm calling Aussie Watch. Is so Pedro Martinez, somebody who's having a really good, at least seems to have a really good season in the back end of last year, beginning of this year, able to come through Darderi because of Darderi retiring in the second set. He was 6-3, 4-1 up. Martinez in that one there. Another Spaniard, Clara Busca, through against the French wildcard Paquet, 6-2, 6-3. Borzas Monero beat the only Brit that was playing today. That was Sonia Cartel, 6-1, 7-6 in the tiebreaker. If you want to know my views on Sonia's performance, you could just go to my Twitter feed. But my main
was it you who tweeted about some commentator saying that that some commentator was basically praising Sonia for winning 2 points in a row at some point because there was nothing else to praise her.
I think that was a tennis talker, Chris something or other. He was thing is mine and his opinion actually was something the same, as that we were kind of, and not to dwell on too much on what is effectively a match that existed on an outside court, but Sonia didn't play any warm-up tournaments before the Australian Open, even though she had a ranking that got a direct entry into the AO for the first time ever really for a Grand Slam for her, because usually it's been either wildcards or qualifying for Grand Slams that she's been doing. And it felt as though the week she was spending back in London would have been better spent actually in Australia, either trying to qualify for Brisbane or Adelaide, or to try and get into the main draw for Auckland or Hobart, or maybe even to play the WTA 125 in Canberra in the first week. So she actually built up that match practice, and it was very apparent, certainly in the first set and in good parts of the second set, that Sonia just she was just a step too slow. She wasn't She wasn't really that match sharp when it came to the decisions she was making, her ability to be aggressive in the match. And then, hey, presto, the result kind of came as expected. Okay, she rallied a bit in that second set, was able to get it to a tiebreaker. Was a mini break-up in that tiebreaker, I think 4-2 or whatnot as a score. So it's a real disappointment that she wasn't able to at least get that to a third set. But we're going to see that from a few players this tournament. Certainly British players, unfortunately, that didn't play any warm-up tournaments or warm-up events, don't have those matches under the belt, and to see how well they end up actually doing in the matches they're going to play. But that's my only little thing there. So, Damien, you don't have any thoughts on Borzness Morero? Is she going to be playing Sabalenka next?
Not really. I mean, I don't think she stands a chance.
Cool.
Yeah, I think also maybe before we go to that segment, because I'm assuming that when we go to that segment, we probably will be after that previewing tomorrow already. So maybe I would just briefly mention what Ghosty was also talking about in the chat, Opelka and also Mahaj, just the fact that both of them looked relatively fit. However, Opelka was in serious trouble. Like, he was 2-0 down to Onclem in the third set. And it was looking bleak. But after that, he was like in almost every return game, which, if you are really in every single return game against, if Riley Opelka is in every single return game against you, that means you're in trouble. And that was really the case for Onclem there. But I'm super pumped for that Opelka Mahaj round 2. I think that's just an absolute blockbuster. And also the winner takes on Djokovic potentially, which will just add to the intrigue. Tell us how you really feel about Bouzas Monteiro. I mean, she's fine, she's going to play Sabalenka. So, yeah. Also, I'm not going to tell you that I know her game all that much. I mean, of course, she was at the United Cup. She beat Sakari, but I think I was more on Maria.
No, I mean, as you say, Opelka, is in that group. I think it's been pointed out that Farah is going to be the person that could play Novak yet, but Novak still needs to beat Vikesh. The surname I will not try and pronounce because Ghosty will laugh at me again if I try that. Okay, so as I said there, Susan Lemons, she was able to win her match. And then, like I said, I was moving on to a segment, as you say. Thomas Mahach, it was a good win against Summit Nagal. Nagal can be a real tricky player for a player to beat, and for Mahach to come through in straight sets, and for them to be outside of tiebreakers is a good going as well. Tatiana Maria got a victory, and as I say, so on Aussie Watch, so there was 4 Australians that played today, and how many won, Damien?
4 Australians that played today. I mean, do you want me just to guess, or do you want me just to start thinking about it? Just guess.
Guess or continue this bizarre.
Probably
segment.
none, I suppose. Then, if we're asking the question,
0. Nil point. Unfortunately for Australians that are in the chat or watching the stream, it wasn't a great day.
I forgot about Jessica. I had 3 in mind, but I forgot about Jessica.
Yeah, just to run through. So Jessica lost to Hugo Gaston. Actually, it was the French that actually inflicted a lot of the results today, funny enough. So Gaston won 6-2, 3-6, 6-2, 6-2. That was on court 3. And then that was followed by Quinton Halys coming from 2 sets to love down. This is going to be the thing that's going to hurt the most for Adam Walton, winning the match 4-6, 4-6, 6-4, 7-6, 7-5, 7-5 in the third. Ouch. Against Adam Walton. I mean, I'm guessing a Quinton Halys versus Adam Walton match sounds as though it was a regular challenger match back last year, Damien.
Alice and Walton?
Yeah. Alex. Yeah.
Sort of, yeah. I think obviously there were a lot of fitness concerns about Alice coming into this one. He had a retirement at 2 games all in the Brisbane qualifying, like Jacob Bradshaw or whatever the guy's name was. So obviously we didn't know how he was gonna play, but given it went 5 sets and he was fine physically at the very end, I think it's pretty safe to say that he's recovered. And such a strong server, when he really started turning it on from the 4th set onwards, I don't think he faced a break point. But even though there weren't any match points, like in the Nishikori Monteiro clash, the 3rd set, Walton had a couple of 15-40 opportunities, so the chance was there. But I think Alice indeed is obviously like a more aggressive, more imposing player, more upside, and he's going to be a more troubling matchup for Arthur Fils potentially in that all-French clash.
It's going to be taking place. And then we've also got, just as the other Aussies that unfortunately lost, Yuri Lehechka, as it probably expected, against Lee 2. Was able to get a fourth win in 4 sets, winning 6-1, 3-6, 6-3, 7-6. Lee 2 put up some good performances at parts, but Lehechka, as we know, he's come off the back of winning Brisbane, really good form at the moment, and somebody that people are certainly expecting to make a good account of himself at this tournament, potentially even maybe looking at trying to get to the second week if possible for Yuri. And then of course, anything you got on Yuri Lehechka's match, by the way?
I didn't watch too much of it. I mean, certainly good for him that he kind of like avoided the unnecessary 5-setter. Couldn't really get close to breaking 2 in the 4th set, but the tiebreak, he just ran away with it very quickly. Yes, I do have Iga Lehechka beating Novak in round 4. So quite pivotal for me there that Lehechka even makes it to round 4. I think obviously his first two rounds are really nice. Then Dimitrov, he's got a good record against. We also don't know what the health situation is with Grigor. And I'm maybe thinking, Novak could be softened up by the Machac Opelka round 3 if one of these guys is peaking and on top of his physical shape. So yeah, I like Lehechka to go on a pretty deep run here, 4th round at the very least, and then of course the Novak match would be kind of like the deal breaker, the one where you actually learn whether this is a run that to remember, or this is just just the 4th round. He did what he was expected to, but nothing spectacular.
No, indeed, it's the Czech 1-2 sort of 1-2 punch that that Novak is potentially going to get between Machac and then Lehechka on that one there. In my brackets, I have got Novak getting through both, but he's going to be absolutely wiped to go into the quarterfinals after that, because they are going to be some tough matches that Novak's going to have to get through if he does play both of those 2 Czech players. And then on to the last Aussie was Daria Saville. She was the one that finished off today, losing 6. She lost to Anna Blinkova. Anna Blinkova winning 1-6. Absolutely getting demolished in the first set, but then coming back 6-4, 7-5. Kind of making it a bit of a wipeout for the Aussies, which is a bit unfortunate given it's the first day of the tournament. But they've got bigger names to come, such as Alex de Minaur, Popyrin, Thompson, Tomjanovic. The whole job lot there.
Ghostie's favorite, the cock.
Ghostie's favorite, Tanasi. Following on there, and then moving on. Like I said, just before we go on to tomorrow's matches. What did you make? So, of course, this is the first day that we've had a coach's corner. So, if anyone's seen on the TV, the coaching box, there's now a second sort of coaching box popped up at the side of the court, literally on the court edge, almost in a similar sort of position as the United Cup, how it was right in the corner. Instead of being up in the stands, on the first row that it has been for a while or for many years. So, any thoughts on how it's been in terms of from a viewing perspective? Do you think it's worked in any way, or do you think it has some issues?
I don't care. I don't see how it impacts my viewing experience whatsoever. I think the Fields box, for example, was still sitting a little higher. They had a massive team there, Mathieu, Grosjean, Ljubicic, Fields' dad, 3 or 4 more people. So basically, I think they were still sitting pretty high. This is, I guess, the Nishikori one. Yeah, looks like Nishikori. There's also
it's the perfect photo because you've got Nishikori with this pained expression on his face, I'm gonna have to still keep on playing and beating this bloke at the moment.
Yeah, I think when Virtanen was playing and he was kind of interacting with Jan de Witt a lot, I guess that was a bit funny sometimes. He was just laughing a ton. But from my perspective, I don't think it really impacts it all that much. If there's a more natural line of communication between the player and the coach, I don't see what's wrong with that, given that we did change the rules so that it's actually, more doable at this point. It's kind of like a United Cup format. Truthfully, if I wasn't doing that watch along with Vansh yesterday or tonight or whatever, depending on how you look at it, I don't think I would have known about it at all. I it's not something I look at while watching the broadcast. So I think if Vansh didn't tell me about it, I would be sitting here and thinking, oh, James, what is that? So that's really all I have to say about the topic.
No, it was, from my perspective, from what I've seen from it, I don't know if it's because we've had, I don't know, I may be mistaken as I'm mixing up the words in my head. But I don't think Sabalenka's team at all actually sat in any of those parts of the boxes, and actually they stayed in the old place.
I think Fields did too. Yeah, I think Fields did too.
And I don't know if it's because I don't know if they're mic'd up. I'm hoping these boxes are mic'd up, but I didn't really hear much dialogue between sort of the coaches and the player, and almost as though what they're almost trying to borrow it from is that United Cup model where you have a team of people in that box area, and well, certainly with that team of people, but then the player goes and sits with the team during the sit downs, whereas here the players go and sit at the normal seats, which is right by the umpire's chair. What I would probably like to see to make this maybe develop further is actually allow the players to go sit with their team at the sit down and at the change of ends. Because that may actually enable us to see some of those conversations, see the players getting frustrated, how the teams deal with the frustrated player. And I think from a viewer perspective, okay, from the player perspective, it may be working a bit better having their team that close. But from a viewer perspective, we may be able to feel a bit more entertainment from, or seeing, or learning a little bit more about the player from those interactions.
Sure. I mean, I'm a simple guy. I just want to watch points matches. I don't care who coaches you for the most part. So yeah, my opinion on this is that it doesn't impact me personally, but I understand how it can be appealing. There was definitely some great moments at the United Cup related to that. I know some people will say that like it would be a bit of an unfair advantage as well, because some people can bring in 10 guys on their team. And basically, the coach, maybe there's a physio even like doing something with your muscles there. And another person, probably outside the top 100, will be just sitting there alone and crying, And I can get that argument too. I'm not really sure at the top level it matters a great deal. Like most of the players here can afford a coach, obviously. But it's just not really something I am personally passionate about.
No. And I may have made myself look a little bit too passionate about it in the process, but we'll go along that. That trajectory. Okay, so now we're just going to have a quick look ahead at some of the bigger matches tomorrow. We won't do a full thing because we do have the team doing a little bit of a show tonight before it all kicks off for day two. But starting off, we'll go to what could be affectionately called it's called the John Cain Arena, but at this time of year, it can be known as the Nick Kyrgios Arena, as he is going to be playing Jake Thurnley, Britain's Jake Thurnley. How do you think this match is going to go, Damien?
Well, my opinion on this is maybe slightly controversial, but I think it's actually a pretty tough one for Nick. We only saw him playing this, of course, 2 doubles matches with Novak, but also the Mpechi-Pericard clash, which someone yesterday tried to tell me that was an incredible performance from Kyrgios and was bringing up the serve stats. I don't think you can say that, because this wasn't a tennis match. This was just them blasting serves at each other. And of course, Nick is going to be good at that. And it's both like the perfect comeback match because he's not going to be pushed physically, but at the same time, you want to be pushed physically when you're coming back. So I think Jake, especially if he finds his return timing, like the match against Eubanks in Canberra was a good example, where for a set and a half, he's just unable to do anything. But then he starts tuning into that, and it's actually one of his strengths generally. And then there's no really like, okay, yeah, it goes to the deciding set, but he's always the one in front. He's always the one pushing for it. He is very all-rounded. I don't think there's any like potential weaknesses that Nick can easily exploit in his game. So to me, this is what makes him a very tricky matchup here. And yeah, because of this, I think it's a very exciting match anyway. But to me, it's pretty clear that it would be a massive effort simply from Nick to, at this stage of his comeback, defeat Jake. But maybe he is ready for this massive effort. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and just say that I'm going to underestimate Nick Kyrgios or something like that. Obviously, he's a super talented player. But yeah, that's kind of like my opinion on this. And maybe in 2 months, I'm going to be saying, oh, it's easy Nick, right? I mean, he's just going to win it like 6-4, 6-4. I don't know. But I don't feel like this at this point in time. I think there are opponents ranked much higher than Jacob Fernley. That would be easier to play for Nick Kyrgios at the moment.
No, indeed. I mean, for some of you who may have followed the Challenger circuit quite a fair bit, Fernley had one of probably the best season of any Challenger player last year. Would you agree, Damien, in terms of where he started to where he ended up finishing, or certainly up there with Leonard Tien and Vikish Bashar Reddy?
Namir
Wow.
Dzumhur, 6 titles. Yeah, I
Six,
think it was a very clear conversation between Dzumhur and Fearnley for like Challenger Player of the Year. Fearnley had the win rate, Dzumhur had the title count. Either way is fine for me.
Yeah, so you know, Fernie, who started the before his first title win, was ranked outside the top 500 in the world. Went on a massive tear, winning 4 titles, and currently sitting around about 90 in the world. So had a huge run up, and is certainly going to be looking this season to be a main tour player and see how he can do on the main tour. Which, as a Brit, I'm excited to see. And of course, he came from the college route. Was a member of the TCU team that won the All American title a couple of year ago. I think it was back in the summer. That's a stretch probably of my college knowledge going on there. So it's certainly, you know, you'd expect the John Cain Arena, which can be one of the most raucous arenas at the Australian Open. Hence the reason why we kind of nicknamed it. I kind of nicknamed it at the start the sort of Nick Kyrgios Arena, because it's a place that he's won a lot on, and it's a place that he loves to play tennis in. It's going to be an environment he's used to, and that's probably going to be one of the factors that is going to almost take away that advantage that Nick would have in this scenario, which is he would have the entire crowd behind him whenever Jake would be serving or Jake would be doing anything. The crowd will be doing their damnedest to try and just distract Jake. That actually it's going to be a place that he's going to really enjoy because he's going to be used to that environment, and will probably won't affect him as much as Nick would hope so. But as you say, you know, I think Bernie's got a good serve, which is going to test Nick's return abilities, and as we know, Nick Kyrgios's returns aren't the best, even when he was at the height of his powers back in 2022, and coming off the back of, you know, the injury that he's had, and we've still got questions over his wrist and another part to do with his back. You know, this is going to be a very tricky match for Nick, and in my brackets, I fully expect Jake to win. I could see this going maybe 4, maybe 5 sets. But I think, you know, Fernie's got the matches under his belt and the ability to really put Nick under all sorts of pressure. And it's going to be a while until Nick's probably back to any form that means that he could compete at the top of the game. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely a highlight of tomorrow's schedule. Like, you gotta give it to Nick in that sense. I also think that, you know, I'm one of these people who think that villain characters are kind of needed in sport. Is he like my favorite villain character? You know, is he sometimes going over the line? Yeah. But if we had just like good guys, if at the top of the sport we have Yannick Sinner playing Felix Auger-Aliassime in every final, that's not exactly what you want to see. You have to have some sort of like opposite to that as well. And yeah, I mean, this is a match between 2 unseeded players. You know, one of them is on a protected ranking. One of them is barely in the top 100. And yet this is the highlight of tomorrow's schedule, which kind of says it all.
No, it does indeed. And moving on from Jake and Nick, fingers, you know, as I say, as a Brit, I hope fingers crossed that Jake gets it done. We've got Naomi Osaka versus Caroline Garcia. Hang on a minute, is this 2024?
Yeah, I think it still might be. Sometimes I still make that mistake.
Yeah. I think we must be recording this in 2024 because no way are we going to get on Rod Laver Arena 4th up Naomi Osaka versus Caroline Garcia? Because that, you know, that'd be mad. Oh no, it is 2025. No, they have been drawn together in the first round again at the same tournament a year later. How do we think this one may go? I mean, we've got one player who has become a bit of a part-time player, unfortunately, Caroline Garcia, and another person who had to tactically retire against in the final in Auckland a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, last year it was Naomi who was the part-time player. Now it's Caro who's the part-time player. Who the hell knows? I mean, Garcia, you never really can be sure of what to expect from her. Last year she had this phenomenal serving day, but at the same time, we later in the season kind of saw that many players had that against Naomi in the first few months. Just her reactions on return were really slow. So even though the match felt high quality, I think a lot of that was just them putting away, you know, +1 shots and etc. I think that Naomi this time is the favorite, but it is also a tricky draw, and just in general, obviously, considering the fact that she was contemplating retirement and just the fact that last year she had 2 slams where she was playing very well at, and yet she didn't go past the second round, despite having chances to do it. You have to look at this draw as like less of an opportunity for Naomi, but more something that she's really going to struggle with. And if it doesn't happen, it might have serious consequences even. So yeah, I mean, for the sake of the rest of her career, I think it's very important for her to keep going here and win. But with Garcia, we just don't know at all what to expect generally, and especially now that, as you said, she's like a part-time player.
No, indeed. And as you say, I would favour Naomi to win this match, just because we haven't really seen anything from Garcia in a while. But as you say, it's all about how that body really holds up in this contest, and is Naomi completely fit to be able to try and get that victory? As we've got their head-to-head up just on the screen here to get two apiece for these two. I think barring the match last year, we actually had a meeting on a number of occasions. Does that make sense? 3-2. Oh yeah, that's where the ticks are. Yeah. So in Miami, Garcia was able to win in straight sets. Was able to win in straight sets. Then in Doha, that was when Naomi made that run to the quarterfinal. Naomi Osaka was able to win into straights. Australian Open popped up there, and then the Australian Open in 21. That was the year that Naomi won it. I believe that was the last year that she actually won the. That was the last Grand Slam that she has won. That was back in the Australian Open in 2021. That one was slightly more comfortable in straight sets there, when Naomi was the third seed when it comes to that matchup. So is there any other matches that you can see tomorrow that you may have had a look at that you've got an interest in?
I mean, I'm probably going to just wander around the streams and the courts and see what exactly is happening at the time. That will be the most interesting. I think starting with Basilashvili Menchik should be good, or maybe Tsitsipas Mikkelsen, considering that Steph has been, about a 50% on hard courts for the last 2 years. For the last year, let's just say that. I think Klein against Korda has just gotten so much more interesting after Sebi had that ab issue in the final in Adelaide. At this point, you don't really know. So that's kind of it for me on the men's side, I suppose, from the ones that stand out, just right away. I don't know if there's anything. Oh yeah, there is a match on in women's singles that is just probably one of my favorite of the entire first round, and that is of course Belinda Bencic facing Elena Ostapenko. Just bring it on.
That's going to be that could be a bit of a humdinger of a match when they face up against each other.
Do I have a special obsession with Jewel and Maya? I mean, I would probably watch it. I like Maya's game. I did watch their previous encounter in person live in Kozerki a couple of years back. So definitely nice twist for me there. But Bencic Ostapenko takes the cake for me still.
No, indeed. I mean, just everyone to mark their cards if they're wanting to join me at the slight interest that Damien has there. Bencic Ostapenko is on the 1573 arena. That's going to be second on that court there, just after Rinderknecht versus Francis Tiafoe. I mean, I have to say, for me, when I wake, because I'm going to try and get at least watch an hour before going to work tomorrow, because unfortunately, although we're in the middle of a Grand Slam, unfortunately, I have to work. Unfortunate life on that one there. Going to catch a bit just because it's my guy. I'm going to go for Jack Drake and see how he's doing against Mariano Navoni. He's on court 3, third up. I'm hoping he'll be playing a bit when I wake up in the morning just to watch for a bit. But it's actually a bit of a shame, really, because some of the potentially interesting and a couple of other interesting matches, which I'm sure you and Vance will catch, Damien, is to do with Coco Gauff versus Sophia Kenin. First up on Rod Laver Arena. That, of course, is a repeat of the first round that took place at Wimbledon a couple of years ago. And we know that ended up with Sophia Kenin winning that match, which is a fun one. And then we got Yannick Sinner starting his title defense against Nicholas Jarry. I mean, he's one of the more higher ranked unseeded players, Nicholas Jarry. So is that a bit of a bugger of a draw, or do you think Sinner's going to have his number quite easily?
I think for both players, it's kind of the same answer. It would be a tough draw for anybody else, and we'd be saying that Coco is vulnerable. I mean, anyone else is vulnerable if they play Kenin in round 1. Anyone else is vulnerable if they get Jarry in round 1. But because Sinner and Gauff, I mean, I just think right now they really cannot be touched. I will only tune into these matches if they are going south, let's say, or even at the very least.
Maybe going west. On that one there. Cool. I believe then that is everything that we've kind of covered in terms of the matches today and tomorrow. Do you have any final thoughts at all, Damien?
Not really. Hopefully tomorrow it's going to be a better day, weather-wise. I know that if it happens, it's going to be a tougher one for me in terms of the sleep. that I'm gonna lose. But yeah, after today, I do feel indeed very energetic, as Jake noticed, and it's not quite like the Australian Open yet, because I'm not a walking zombie.
What time are you going to wake up in the morning, Damien?
Huh?
What time are you going to wake up in the morning? Or are you going to go to bed now, or?
No. I slept through like 6 hours of the night today because again there wasn't that much happening. So I don't think I'm gonna go to sleep before the action, no, or maybe for just a brief nap. But yeah, it's definitely a system that I need to figure out. Last year I had this very good one where I was going to bed for like 2-3 hours before the start of play, and then sort of like during the night I would catch up on some of that sleep. But basically, it was pretty healthy still. I felt nice. I'm definitely not as when we went to Bonn with Mario and had these like 15-hour streams. That took it all. But yeah, last year I had this figured out pretty nicely. So maybe I'm just gonna have something similar. I don't know. Of course, it depends. I'm not one of these people who can just fall asleep whenever they want to. Very often, if I have to fall asleep, I'm just sitting there for an hour and, I just end up giving up on it and watching something instead. So, yeah, I mean, I'll have to figure something out. But hopefully I'm going to be able to watch the most I can. And, of course, this is the worst slam by far from a European standpoint. So I'm glad that it's going to be over soon.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things, and I mean we'll quickly go on the hint that Nick that John has done about the match he thinks could be potential upset tomorrow. But yeah, this month I really like the way the marketing and all the things that the Aussie Open swing does. But I'm so glad it's only 4 weeks, and then I'm going to be back to having matches take place in European time zones that are going to be much more palatable, because it is a nightmare. Like it's now what 2:30 in the afternoon UK time, and that's it. I mean, I'm lucky because I'm going to watch the United match in a bit in the football, but it's all over. Majority of the matches take place when I'm asleep. I catch only really the end of the night session matches. Yeah, as much.
Also, there's the Oeiras Challenger, and then the Buenos Aires Challenger at the end of the day. So. Yeah, I'm gonna have something 24/7, basically.
Yeah, so you are there, and I'm gonna probably catch a bit of the Oeiras Challenger. I saw that Hamad Bajenovic, who a lot of people were quite surprised that he didn't go to Australia, given that he would have been a top 16 seed in the qualifying to get into the main draw, decided to stay in Europe and won the Oeiras Challenger yesterday. Quite a comfortable victory actually against Draxel, but I don't know if you definitely watched that, didn't you?
Yeah, stupid question. I mean, you didn't actually ask it, but yeah, it would have been a stupid question. Obviously, I did. Yeah, the gamble paid off already, so that's like fantastic for him. He's actually going to play Shelby, and you might remember that last year at the Australian Open qualifying, he lost to Abdullah Shelby in the second round. So it's a rematch for Australia last year, but in Oeiras, which is pretty funny.
A rematch for Australia halfway across the world in Portugal. This is our
just a week separated from that, right? Because they played in the qualies, so it's just like 53 weeks literally. So that's pretty fun. And yeah, generally the Oeiras draws now are going to get a lot more competitive. So if he's not like on top of his game physically, yeah,
we have a few players that didn't quite work out in Australia who have flown back over to start their European indoor challenger season. But what was it? I was going to go say, I see Dan Evans is in the draw as well for Oeiras this week. So and he wants to try and kickstart his season back up. And of course, yesterday you probably guessed I did watch the Nottingham Challenger final, which took place. Unfortunately, Henry Searle was unable to win that, which would have been good for the young lad. But yeah, just to go back to what John's hint. So we have tomorrow Stefanos Tsitsipas versus Alex Michelsen. Now we know Steph has traditionally had a really good Australian Opens. It tends to be the hard court tournament he does the best at. But as we know, he lost to Shevchenko at the United Cup. Really isn't in any real great shape of any real form. Certainly on the outdoor hard courts and whatnot at the moment. Do you see Alex Michelsen, who had a really good end to the 2024 season? Do you see him potentially causing an upset here?
I mean, Michelsen beat him already in Asia last year. I know that Steph had something like heat stroke-ish there, but honestly, it's not a match where I feel like I can give you any predictions because it's just like way too close. it's literally the same. Like, I don't know. Steph, again, 50% win rate, more or less, on hard courts over the past year. He's really declined in that department so much. He's become very irrelevant in terms of these big events. So ultimately, I also just don't really think it matters if he wins today. He might lose in the third round, fourth round. I mean, the only thing he has going for him at this event is very good head-to-heads against Khachanov and Deminor. So technically, you can assume that maybe if he gets to the third round, he's going to beat Karen, he's going to beat Alex, and then he plays Yannick, and then he has no chance, even though he also has a good record against Yannick, but that's going to be like, over time, that's going to go down. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't really feel like this is a match where you can really make a call, because both players are just pretty evenly matched on hard courts at the moment. Everybody knows how to play Tsitsipas. Tsitsipas knows how everybody is going to play him. And this is just kind of becoming like a bit of a chess debate in a way. And
just hit it to that backhand, hit it to the backhand. You'll get the results from there. I mean, it's one of the worst kept secrets in tennis. If you want to beat Steph Tsitsipas, just hit it to his backhand, and then that will deliver you the results you need.
I agree about that. That ADM would be priced as favorite against Steph now on hard courts, despite the record. In fact, I think I went either Khachanov over Tsitsipas already, again, despite the head-to-head record in the third round, or maybe even Landalusa over Tsitsipas in my bracket. So yeah, I just don't really trust Steph on hard courts at the moment at all. And I think these head-to-heads against Alex and Karen, they might not hold up if they actually get to play each other in the third round, fourth round here. And so yeah, I think that sort of pricing would be indeed the case, and I think it would be right as well.
No, indeed. Okay, and just to give a weather, just to turn this into Talking Tennis does weather forecasts. For Melbourne tomorrow, it's going to be a high of 28 degrees with a low of 14, and the expectation is it's going to be mainly sunny with a little bit of cloud, with only a 20% chance of rain at around about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So fingers crossed there's going to be no rain tomorrow, and it's all going to be lovely and warm, not too warm, for the players to be able to sort of, play the rest of the matches, some of the matches that they kind of weren't able to play today. Okay, so thanks for joining in, me, Damien, and we will end it just here. Like I said, please do join in. We've got 11 o'clock tonight. We've got the sort of the startup show, sort of previewing a lot of the matches that are going to be taking place for the before matches kick off. We've got covering a few of those matches like Naomi Osaka, Garcia on the live streams, and then we'll have last ball drops. Again, literally as soon as the last game's ball gets won, match point is secured by a player on maybe court 15 or whatever it could end up being, and all those bits there. James is so posh using Celsius. It is the correct way to measure to measure temperature. Ghost, not this Fahrenheit nonsense that you lot like to try and keep pushing.
I mean, you're saying this as a Brit, but like some of your systems as well, maybe not necessarily temperature, but some of your systems are ridiculous. So
there's nothing wrong with measuring stuff in pints, feet, and inches.
Oh, there is. There is. It's making life tougher for yourself. You do have the better spelling of many words, so I'll give you that.
No, we created the language, so we think we should be able to make it work properly.
Sure.
Cool. Okay, so see you lot. See everyone later on. Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.